Ladies and gentlemen, Roblox has just published a post on the developer forum which actually gives us direct insight to how they recommend games on Roblox and how your game can even be discovered. If you're a developer on Roblox, this post might be one of the most valuable posts that we've ever received in years. I mean, the information that we've actually got directly given to us from official Roblox sources is so helpful and so amazing. So while you may have watched hundreds of different videos on YouTube already about how to grow your Roblox game or how to make it the next most popular game on Roblox, this video is a different one because we actually have official verified information that's given to us directly from Roblox. So in this post, Roblox has literally told us how they measure our game and what different things they look at before our game gets put into the algorithm and recommended to different users. So through this video, we're essentially going to cover this entire article, but we're mostly just going to talk about the important parts and how we can actually use that information to grow our own game and what things we can focus on as developers, and not even big developers. I'm talking like the average person. What can the average developer who doesn't want to spend thousands of dollars on their game to get it popular and different things like that, what can we actually do to still succeed in this market? Now, as always, I'll leave a link down below in the description to this article, and I'd highly encourage you to read it after you've watched this video and after we've covered the most important things, just so that you can read through the small details on your own in case you're interested in some of the things that we skipped over. Now, Roblox's discovery system is actually made up of a couple of different subsystems. These subsystems that make up the entire discovery system that Roblox is talking about is the homepage, the matchmaking service, the search bar, the discover page, and notifications. Now, 2 out of these 5 systems, in my opinion, are a lot less relevant, so we're not going to talk about them too much in this video. So in this video, we're mostly only going to be talking about the homepage, the search bar, and the discover tab. And to quickly give you a preview of what each of those systems exactly are, when you're logged into Roblox, usually the first page that you'll be brought to is the homepage. Now, your homepage probably looks a little bit different than mine because I have a couple of different browser extensions installed which modify mine a tiny bit, but on this page, you should see the continue section, which allows you to pick up from the last few games that you've played, and then below that, you have a recommended for you section where Roblox will recommend you a bunch of different games. So this is one system which makes up the entire Discover system. Then we have the Discover page, which is right beside the homepage. On the Discover page, we can see a bunch of different categories or sorts of games which are grouped together for a particular reason. So to start us off, we have the most engaging sort, which I assume that all of the games put into this category are based on player retention. So all of these games likely have a bunch of players which have played for a very long time when they play. Those players have also probably played a bunch of different times on that game and continuously come back to that game, and that's how Roblox measures that these are actually the most engaging games. Then they have recommended for you, which is probably more of a user-based category, so they'll probably actually try to take into account what games you actually enjoy and then recommend some of those specific ones to you, while still including some of the most popular games. But then they have a bunch of other sorts here as well, so it's pretty clear how this page also makes up a very large portion of the overall discovery system. Then finally, we have the search system, which if we search for anything inside of the search bar, we can get recommended a bunch of different experiences to us as well. So I just searched up the keyword pet, and we can see a variety of different games that I've now been recommended. So in my opinion, these are the 3 biggest systems which actually play a part in discovery overall, and these are the ones that we'll actually go over and talk about from the information that we've gotten from Roblox's official post. So to start off this post, they mentioned that this post is actually kicking off a series of posts on what they're testing and why, as well as what they've shipped and the impact of the solutions for the creator community. So this first post focuses on high-level topics such as their discovery mission and principles, where they are today, how the current discovery system works, what it means for us, and a preview of what is to come in the future. So let's first start off by looking at the mission and principles section. They say that their mission for discovery is threefold. First, they focus on connecting every user with the best creation and community for them. Then they focus on connecting every creation with the most relevant audience. And finally, they also focus on keeping the platform fresh, vibrant, and exciting with new creations and updates. Then they write a paragraph below that which says, the first 2 aspects amplify each other. Finding the right audience for every creation encourages you to continue investing in or developing new experiences which, at scale, provides a higher variety of great content for our users, and over time brings a larger and broader audience to the platform. The last aspect amplifies the first 2, creating a healthy ecosystem. So what they mean by this is, when a user is coming to Roblox to actually play a game, Roblox's first focus on recommending games to that player is to first recommend them with the best creations and community for them. So they're going to prioritize recommending that player games which have a reputation of being good games to play on their platform. But then their second focus is to connect every creation with the most relevant audience. and those two aspects amplify each other. So Roblox first prioritizes giving the player a good experience and putting them into a game that they would most likely want to play. And the reason I'm saying that is because the third point here, it talks about keeping the platform fresh, vibrant, and exciting with new creations and updates. So while Roblox does want to promote fresh and new creations, at the same time, they are of course going to primarily focus on recommending games which have a reputation of being good and being good recommendations in the past. So that's why it's a lot more common for popular games such as Blox Fruit, Bed Wars, or different core games like that have been known and have a good reputation over such a long time. Roblox is way more likely to recommend those things that have been proven to be good games rather than recommending a brand new game that has just been launched. And we'll come back and touch on those points in a little bit. Now, here's where the real meat and potatoes are inside of this post, in my opinion. They then say, we design and continue improving our discovery system according to 3 principles. The first is a merit-based discovery. Every creation should reach an audience based on its quality. And now they actually talk about how they measure the quality of a game. So they say that quality often correlates with how much creators invest into it, such as updates, events, and etc. Now, in my opinion, telling developers to invest into their game and how they measure those investments based on updates and events, that's not really helpful. That's actually really vague. Like, if I update my game every single day, how much does Roblox even care about that? Does just publishing a simple update, like if I update my game 100 times a day versus 1 time a day, do those things actually matter or make a difference? Roblox doesn't actually really specify that here. But a little bit further into this paragraph gives us some actual things that we can measure. So in addition to quality, they also promote your game based on how much people love it. And now, how is people's love measured? Well, they measure this by how much time and money the player spends on your game. So those factors we can actually look at, measure, and modify our game to improve our game to better suit the algorithm. Now, some of those things might have been pretty obvious off the bat. Obviously, if we can get players to play our game for longer, then our game will rank higher in the algorithm. Or if we're able to get players to spend more money in our game, then obviously that's going to rank higher in the algorithm as well. Now, we're going to talk about those things more, but let's keep those few points in the back of our mind as we read further into this article so that we can tie everything together, because there is a lot of valuable information in this article. So the important stuff that we've heard so far is Roblox cares about how much we update our games, how often we host events in our games, how much time and money players spend in our games as well. Those are the 4 factors that we can concretely look at and always think about when trying to focus on improving our game to better suit the algorithm. So we'll scroll down a little bit to the How Discovery Works section. Discovery serves more than 7.5 billion impressions per day, presenting a massive opportunity for creations to find an audience. They then say that we optimize discovery for 3 main purposes: engagement, monetization, and ecosystem health. And the first 2 quantify how much people love a creation by spending time or money on it. So they go a little bit more in detail into those specific topics. First, they talk about engagement. Engagement includes multiple dimensions about how people spend their time, such as depth, which is the playthrough rate, the length, and frequency, such as session length and frequency, stickiness, which is retention, socialness, friend inviting and co-op experiencing, and in the future, degree of joy, user satisfaction, such as a thumbs up rate. Now, there is a ton of helpful information given right there. So before we go on to the second point, which talks about monetization and how that affects discovery, let's specifically cover each of the different points that they mentioned right here. So first, they mentioned playthrough rate. And what I think they mean exactly by playthrough rate is how long players play your game, especially during their first session. Let's say that you're making an obby game, and it's a hard obby game. If a player joins your game for the first time, and within 30 seconds, they're not having a good time, because they're unable to get past the first objective and they leave your game. In my opinion, because obviously I don't know exactly 100% Roblox's algorithm, I feel that that would definitely show Roblox's algorithm that your game is not fun. So you would want to increase your playthrough rate. When a player joins your game, you want to try to grab that player's attention and keep it for as long as you possibly can to increase the amount of time that they spend on your game, especially for the first time or first few times. That also ties into the length factor as well, so getting players to play your game longer and spend more time in your experience. Then they mentioned frequency, so getting those same players to come back and play your game multiple times again, they also look at that as well. Then stickiness, which in my opinion is kind of a mix of a few things that we just went over, and they describe stickiness as retention. So trying to get players to play your game for longer and more consistently. Now, another factor that's interesting that they mentioned is socialness, so actually getting players to invite their friends. On the surface level, that obviously makes sense. If you can motivate players to invite their friends, of course you'll get more players that way, but now knowing that this actually has an effect on how you'll be pushed in Roblox's algorithm really is pretty eye-opening. So in your game, you want to make sure that you encourage players to actually invite their friends to your game to not only get another player to play your game, but also to get a bigger boost in the algorithm. And the last thing that they mentioned was user satisfaction, which they'll pretty much base off the like rating in your game. So as of now, it really doesn't matter how many dislikes your game actually gets or how many likes it gets. They're not taking that into account when making your game more discoverable, but they will in the future. And again, we quickly touched on all these different points, but we'll loop back around and actually go into detail on how developers create systems in their game to help with those specific metrics. Now, in the next section, they talk about how monetization affects a game's discoverability as well. So they say that the monetization aspect focuses on whether users are getting enough value so that they want to spend money to further improve their experience, which they simplify by calling payer conversion, and how much they are willing to spend, revenue per paying user. So to dive into those 2 points, payer conversion, we can even directly look at Roblox's monetization documentation, and they say that payer conversion measures the percent of your users who engage with your paid features or content. And then the second point is revenue per paying user, which is how much revenue is generated by paying users on average over a certain period of time. So I feel like it's fair to summarize both of those things up as you want to have valuable developer products or game passes inside of your game that makes players actually want to purchase them. So you want to make it worth their money. The more people you have spending money in your game, the better your game will perform on this specific metric that Roblox looks at when they recommend your game in the discoverability. Now that we understand most of the core metrics that we're actually being measured on, let's look at a little bit more advice that Roblox hands to us. So in this section of the article, Roblox goes over a typical journey for a new experience to obtain a matched audience. So, step 1, build. Creator builds a great experience by emphasizing craftsmanship, quality, performance, device compatibility, localization, and good game design. And then they deploy this experience to Roblox along with high-quality metadata and media. Now, what metadata is pretty much the description and the title of your experience. And of course, what is high-quality media? Well, that would be, say, your game's thumbnail or the other images and even a video that you can include on your game's page as well. Then we have pass moderation. Roblox trust and safety system moderates the assets shown within experiences and verifies that it's safe to publish on the platform, which you kind of don't really have to worry about because as you create the game, those things should automatically be done. But then we have the third step, which is actually really important and insightful here. Grow initial audience. Creator finds initial audience via on-platform ads, community, friends, and off-platform community building and influencers. So what they're saying here is that you need to grow your initial audience on your own, whether that be by using TikTok, influencers, ads, or anything like that. Basically, you need to grow your game a tiny bit, and then once you establish to Roblox that you actually have an audience and your game is even worth putting into the discovery at all, that's when Roblox will actually begin to recommend that to people. Then step 4 is get assessed. Roblox algorithm gives an initial set of impressions to understand how the experience resonates across a wide variety of users. Then the impression rate normalizes. So then they say that the image below is an example. This small ads buy from August 2023 gave the algorithm enough signal to start ranking Life Together and building up impressions. So it seems like once you gather a small audience for your game, Roblox will then do some of the work on its own by recommending your game to a variety of different players, some who may be interested in your game and others who may not be interested in your game. And I would imagine that that allows them to really understand who to recommend your game to. And then they call step 5 iterate, where they say the creator continues to polish the experience to improve engagement. They tend to do these 4 things that work well. So great metadata/media, using high quality metadata and media such as exploring with better titles to better attract an audience. Know the audience, use creator analytics and off-platform analytics to understand engagement, progression, and monetization trends. Then step 3 is launch thoughtful updates. Launch a thoughtful content update and automatic translations that continue delighting the audience, which while they use words like thoughtful and delighting the audience, I think what they actually mean is updates which improve your game's statistics or Roblox's overall impression of your game closer to meeting the metrics which they actually value. So launching updates which then in turn actually increase user engagement or user retention and different things like that. I think that's what they actually mean when they say delighting to the audience and thoughtful content updates. And another step that creators take is improve monetization and retention. So introduce new products and price points with developer products, game passes, and subscriptions. And also you can use creator analytics to identify potential ways to improve user experience. Then they go on to show an example, and they say months after Life Together launched, especially after their 11th update, they blew up on TikTok and YouTube during Christmas. And then they call step 5, get rewarded. So Roblox algorithm sees the spike in audience engagement and increases impressions on Roblox. And then they include another example, with as many as 14 updates, Life Together continues growing to become a breakout experience on Roblox. So it sounds like Life Together began improving their game to meet some of the metrics that Roblox actually looks at. And at some point, they blew up on TikTok and got a lot of players joining their game. So with the spike in attention to their game and also the improvements that they've made to fit Roblox's algorithm, that's when Roblox really pushes you with the algorithm and rewards you by increasing how often your game is shown on Roblox to a variety of players. They then acknowledge how growing the initial audience is not ideal and that they plan to address this in the future. Okay, so that was a lot of information that we just went over. Let's go ahead and recap some of the important things that we talked about. So the way that Roblox actually measures the performance of your game is based on the playthrough rate. So when players play your game for the first time, they actually spend more than a couple of seconds playing it, and Roblox can use that to tell if they're actually having a good time in your game. They also take into account the length, so for how long players will actually spend inside of your game. We of course want players to spend more time in their game than less. Then they also measure frequency, so how often players are playing your game and how often they come back to it. Then stickiness, which is also retention, so getting players to play for longer and more consistent. Then we have socialness, so getting friends to invite each other and accepting those invites and playing the game together that way. Then they talk about payer conversion, which measures the percent of users who engage with your paid features or content in your game. And then they also measure how much users are spending on average. So how much revenue is being generated by the paying users and players on average over a certain period of time. So we want to try to encourage our players to actually buy something in our game to not only support us both financially, but also get us pushed further into the algorithm and get our game recommended to more people. In addition to those things, Roblox also takes into consideration high quality metadata. So an attractive title that makes people want to click, similar to a YouTube video, and a good description of your game as well. They also take into account your media, so a good thumbnail that people are actually clicking on, or even thumbnails, videos, and different things like that that you can also customize for your game. So those are all the things that Roblox actually considers before they begin recommending your games to other players on the platform. Now that we understand all of the metrics that Roblox measures our game, let's quickly touch on each of the different metrics and how we can actually improve our game to accommodate for them. So to improve our playthrough rate, we want to give players a better first experience. So let's say, for example, if we have an obby game. If we're making an obby game, we probably want to avoid making the first few obstacles very hard on the player. If the first few obstacles are very hard on the player, that can really just motivate the player to quit their game as soon as they start failing the obstacles. So it might be a better idea to start the player off smooth and easy, allow them to venture through this, and after a couple of minutes that they've been playing through the obby, having a fun time, that's when you can start to implement some of the more challenging obstacles which players might begin to rage quit at. Hopefully, once they've played for a little bit of time and had a smooth and good experience, but start to reach difficult obstacles, they won't instantly quit. They'll instead spend more time trying to actually get past that harder obstacle and enjoy it. Then we have the length. So getting players to play for a longer time. Obviously, you should try to develop the most engaging game as possible and try to consistently get players to be playing your game 24/7. Basically, try to get your players to be addicted to playing your game and not do anything else. In my opinion, it is not helpful at all to say make an engaging game, because obviously if everybody can make an engaging game, everybody would. It's just not that simple. So since engagement is not the simplest thing to actually produce, what a lot of people do is implement AFK systems into their games. This is extremely common in simulators, for example. Let's say that you play a clicking simulator, and inside of that simulator, it's more than likely that you're going to have access to an auto clicker, which will automatically earn points for you while you're not even playing the game. This increases the length of how long players are playing your game for if they're just consistently AFKing. Now, there's a ton of different AFK systems that you can implement into your game to reward players for simply just staying in your game without them even playing the game at all. We then have frequency, so getting players to come back and play your game once again. One idea to improve this would be implement different systems into your game, such as hourly events, or even like a delayed hatching system. So allow players to hatch eggs in your game, but the egg takes 6 hours to hatch. So they'll have to come back after 6 hours and claim those eggs. So you want to just give players a reason to actually show back up to your game, whether that be daily rewards, hourly events, or different things like that. Those are all different ways that you can motivate players to come back to your game. Then we have stickiness, which kind of ties in the retention, longer, and more consistent plays. And those things all kind of tie into the points that we just went over. We also have socialness, which is getting your friends to invite each other and play the game together. And an easy way to improve this is to encourage players to invite their friends or play together by having stat boosts. So if you're playing a clicking simulator game, you can say that the amount of clicks that you receive per minute are going to increase with the more friends that you have in your server. Then when it comes to payer conversion, so the percentage of users who are actually buying paid content in your game, make your developer products and game passes worthwhile. So try to make them actually worth the value that players have to spend to purchase them. If you look through all of your game passes and you see statistics point that certain game passes are just not being purchased, then maybe it's a good idea to remove that game pass and give that feature simply for free to all the players in your game. Or alternatively, Alternatively, you could think of different ways that you can actually improve and add value to that Game Pass to motivate people to actually want to purchase it. Then, of course, when it comes to the high quality metadata and media, you most likely want to experiment with different titles, thumbnails, descriptions, and different things like that. But at the end of the day, the thing that you want to value the most is attention grabbing. It's very similar to YouTube when you're making YouTube thumbnails or titles. When people go onto a platform like YouTube or Roblox and they're presented with 100 different things that they can click on, what motivates them to click on something the most? Well, first of all, eye-grabbing thumbnails are obviously going to grab their attention first. So you want to focus on having a very popping and eye-grabbing or attention-grabbing thumbnail. Doing things like having vibrant colors or different objects that are very attractive to the audience that you're looking to attract. And then even titles, you want to include catchy things in your titles. One small example of this would be brand new update. If players see a brand new update just came out for your game, that will probably entice them and make them more excited to actually give it another try or play it once again. And with all that being said, we've now covered all of the key metrics that Roblox actually focuses on before they push your game with the algorithm. And we've also talked about how we can improve our game or develop our game with those specific key metrics in mind. I plan to make another video in the future giving more examples and system ideas on how you can actually improve on all of these different key metrics for your own game. But for right now, that's all that we're going to cover in this video. Anyways, if you did enjoy the video, make sure you smash the like button. And if you want to be updated with more Roblox development information in the future, you can feel free to hit the subscribe button as well. Additionally, if you want to support me and gain access to a ton of different resources that you can use to easily make your next Roblox game, feel free to visit my Patreon or monster.dev, which is my own website that you can support me and gain access to all those resources. Link down below in the description to both of these. And with that being said, I hope that you have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.